Tonight, a shocker coming out of Albany. New York Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver arrested by the feds on corruption charges. Silver says he's confident he'll be vindicated of the charges. Could this probe bring down here more than just him? And what, if any, questions does the governor need to answer about this, especially with the Moreland Commission coming to an abrupt close? Also, we will head to New Jersey, where two police officers on leave after a dash cam caught one of the two shooting and killing a man during a traffic stop. How will this case be treated following the deaths of both Eric Garner and Michael Brown? Plus, yes, we are in the run-up to the Super Bowl, but nobody's talking about the big game. Tom Brady, big Bill Belichick today speaking about the so-called Deflategate surrounding the Patriots and what happened in the AFC Championship game. What kind of punishments could be coming down? Evening, everyone, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you so much for joining us. And tonight we will begin in New York City, where Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver facing federal corruption charges. FBI agents arresting Silver this morning on conspiracy and bribery charges. Silver released on $200,000 bail, and he says he's confident that after a full hearing and due process, he'll be vindicated of the charges. Well, today, Preet Bharara, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, spoke out about the charges against Mr. Silver.
The complaint charges Speaker Silver in 5 counts with corruptly seeking legal business from a handful of people and entities with significant business or interests before the state, and then corruptly profiting from the legal fees that were paid. All told, we allege that Silver corruptly collected some $4 million in bribes and kickbacks disguised as referral fees. Those disguised bribes and kickbacks account for approximately 2/3 of all of Silver's outside income since 2002.
Now, Fast One reporter Miles Miller, he's been on this story all day, and he joins us live from outside the federal courthouse in Manhattan. Miles?
Well, Richard, he's known as one of the 3 men in the room in Albany to get deals done, and he sure got one done for himself, according to federal prosecutors, who says that Sheldon Silver is responsible for getting $4 million in kickbacks from law firms. Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver turned himself into federal prosecutors Thursday. Amid federal corruption charges, he used his powerful position in Albany to secure nearly $4 million in bribes and kickbacks. Manhattan U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara delivered a harsh condemnation of the speaker following a 2-year investigation.
Over his decades in office, Speaker Silver has amassed titanic political power. But as alleged, during that same time, Silver also amassed a tremendous personal fortune through the abuse of that political power.
Prosecutors say Silver used his credentials as a lawyer to collect some $4 million in bribes and kickbacks described as referral fees. During that time, Silver reported on state disclosure documents $6 million in outside income for alleged work at 2 firms, $700,000 from an unnamed real estate law firm, and $5.3 million from asbestos legal giant Whites and Luxembourg.
For many years, New Yorkers have asked the question, how could Speaker Silver, one of the most powerful men in all of New York, earn millions of dollars in outside income without deeply compromising his ability to honestly serve his constituents? Today, we provide the answer. He didn't.
The complaint alleges that for more than a decade, Silver created a scheme to encourage real estate developers with business before the state to use a real estate law firm controlled by a lawyer who had once worked as an attorney in his office. The lawyer, according to the complaint, orchestrated payments to the speaker for referrals to the firm. The complaint also says that Silver gave $500,000 in state funds to help a New York-based lawyer with asbestos research, as the physician made asbestos personal injury referrals to Whites and Luxembourg, which paid Silver. Prosecutors seized approximately $3.8 million of Silver's money Thursday from 8 bank accounts. In court, Silver sat with his head bowed in a pinstripe suit. He surrendered his passport and was released on $200,000 bail.
I am confident that when all the issues are aired, I will be vindicated.
Silver faces 25 years in prison on each of the charges. Richard, he'll return to court on February 23rd.
Miles, thank you very much here. And again, the U.S. Attorney, Preet Bharara, let's be clear, he's accusing Silver of corruption on multiple fronts. First of which, that he was paid nearly $4 million for steering asbestos clients and state money to a law firm that he worked for. And second, for his role with a small real estate tax firm for which he was paid roughly $750,000, earnings that Silver, again, never disclosed. Bharara says Silver helped clients lower their real estate tax exposure, even those engaged in state business.
Sheldon Silver, Speaker of the New York State Assembly, was in fact on retainer to a mammoth real estate developer at the very same time that the chamber he dominates was considering and passing legislation vitally affecting the bottom line of that developer, at the very same time that he was hearing out lobbyists paid by that developer, and at the very same time that he was deliberately keeping secret from the public any information about this lucrative side deal in violation of the law.
And to go further, Bharara, he sent a warning shot, not just to Sheldon Silver, but to all of Albany, who many say he's declared on war before, citing Mr. Silver as an example of, frankly, all that's wrong with the Capitol.
Politicians are supposed to be on the people's payroll, not on secret retainer to wealthy special interests they do favors for. These charges, in our view, go to the very core of what ails Albany. Lack of transparency, lack of accountability, and lack of principle, joined with an overabundance of greed, cronyism, and self-dealing.
Leaving no gray area there where the U.S. Attorney stands. Let's bring in Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. He's been following this all day, and to say that Sheldon Silver is not a giant in recent New York politics would be a disservice here. He's been one of the three men in the room for multiple governors now, and it's, I think, interesting how he got to where he is. This isn't the first time that he's had bruising editorials about him. Now they're calling for him to step down.
And this isn't the first time that he's stepped in scandal or had questions as to whether or not he was going to be able to survive. But because he's such a political player and wields so much power in Albany, he's been relatively bulletproof until now. However, that may change as the U.S. federal investigation expands, and who knows where it might lead. For almost 21 years, Sheldon Silver has been among the most powerful political figures in Albany. In that span, 5 different governors have come and gone. Silver has remained the top Democrat and the top overall figure in the state assembly. Democrats have controlled the assembly since 1975, putting the assembly speaker in a position of enormous influence that can stretch beyond the headlines and crises of any one news cycle. Silver can determine whose bills are debated, what issues will be considered, how money is spent, who sits on what committees, and more. With Sheldon Silver's support, a bill can and often does become a law. Without Sheldon Silver's support, that bill is dead on arrival. His power is so expansive, he's called one of New York's so-called 3 men in the room. It's said that Silver, the governor, and the Senate president, right now Long Island's Dean Skelos, can among themselves make nearly any deal and pass nearly any law. This is not Silver's first brush with controversy or the law. He was accused of protecting former Assemblyman and ally Vito Lopez from charges of sexual harassment. Lopez was forced to resign. Questions over whether Silver went too far in protecting him have never gone away. Silver has also been accused of slowing real estate development on the Lower East Side, his district, and preventing projects, including affordable housing, for decades in some cases. Silver's influence questioned after the arrest of longtime Silver ally William Rapfogel, who looted the funds of a publicly financed Jewish charity, and the appearance both men worked to keep the area majority Jewish, a cultural and political benefit for both men. Silver's legal troubles could also be an issue for Governor Cuomo. U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara picked up the Silver investigation from the governor's so-called Moreland Commission on Public Corruption. If Cuomo knew the commission was zeroing in on Silver and moved to protect him, the governor could be the next one with ethical or even legal issues of his own. Preet Bharara was asked today if Governor Cuomo's quashing of the Moreland Commission at all was part of this investigation. Bharara only said that the investigation was continuing. So, Rich, most people seem to feel like we've not heard the last from this investigation.
And when pressed on timeline questions about when it ended and when they picked it up, he certainly did not dissuade the questioners that there was some correlation for time.
There was an indication that the U.S. Attorney's Office was already investigating Shelley Silver before the Moreland Commission was shut down, but they certainly picked up speed and got plenty of information from what the Moreland Commission had looked into.
But it begs the question, guys, if the Moreland Commission had some stuff on Shelley Silver and was shut down, the basic question is why? And obviously we're going to get into more of that. I want to bring in Dominic Carter as well, who along with Andrew is going to help us navigate this. And Dominic, you're hearing about words of fraud, kickbacks, bribery, extortion. I want to read just a little part of the indictment. This is just from the overview, so this isn't some esoteric thing. Just listen to the first couple of sentences of the overview of it. It said that Shelley Silver is engaged in and continues to engage in, not one time, did this perpetually for a better part of a decade here, secret and corrupt scheme to deprive the citizens of the state of New York of his honest services and to extort individuals and entities under color of official right here, fraud, extortion, bribery, kickbacks. This is, I mean, people, we joke around with Richard Brodsky, our good friend, former assemblyman, who we always joke around is always one of the few honest men of Albany. And
but I was not joking when I would say those comments.
But he always takes issue whenever you do that.
But I was not joking.
That the speaker perpetually could do this, and we'll get into systemically why, but if anything would finally change, because let's face it, right now it's legal, guys, right? To not only have a second job, right, outside of Albany, it's encouraged. And then you don't have to disclose where all your income comes from. That's legal right now. And the idea that you can work for, in effect, Albany, whether it's an assemblyman or a state senator, whether a Republican or a Democrat, doesn't matter, 4 days of the week, and then magically you're going to be of counsel of great consequence on your 5th day when you're not in the office. What do you think people are coming to you to write briefs? No, they're coming to you for influence and access. And then we lead this merry-go-round that we go into. Now, some will take it further if you believe the allegations, and we'll give him his due process and day in court, but if you believe the allegations, this is the most perverse use of power, of allocation of funds that were set aside for committees here, and extortion, as the U.S. Attorney is alleging here, to get what you want. And this has gone on for year after year after year, and we even had a commission to investigate it, and it took a U.S. Attorney to get to the bottom of it. Premature, maybe, but I understand why people are saying he's got to go.
It's not looking good, Richard. Due process, Mr. Silver is entitled to his day in court, but it appears 5 counts, looking at 20 years per count. It's not looking good for Mr. Silver. The only question really as of tonight is, will he flip? And if you flip, you've got to flip on somebody. I mean, the feds don't just want the janitor.
There's only one guy who would flip.
Right. You either flip on Skelos, and now the questions of what Skelos, and I don't want to imply that Skelos has done anything wrong, but you better believe Bahara is going to be looking at exactly the same issues as it relates to Skelos. And then, of course, the big fish in all of this, the 800-pound gorilla, if you will, the governor. And, you know, it's funny. So yesterday in Albany, when they went through announcing all the officials, they come out for the State of the State address. When Mr. Silver came out, he waved, and I thought to myself, I wonder how much this investigation is weighing on him. I do not believe that he knew the feds were about to place him under arrest, because he still seemed his regular self.
I did think it was interesting in the State of the State address, and maybe it would have been in there before, but there was an announcement by the governor to all of a sudden have transparency in terms of outside income and limitations as to how some of that income could be generated here. Maybe that was always going to be.
Yeah, he's been talking about
fair
that for a while.
Fair enough.
It's better in a soundbite than it is in reality, because none of the people who are in Albany would have to vote on that actually wanted to vote on it.
But Richard, the governor is in a pickle tonight.
Well, and I think we can get back to that in a second, because I don't know what Shelley Silver should do right now. There's going to be a lot of calls for him to resign. We've already heard for a lot of calls for him to resign. But if you look at the allegations again, and let's give him the benefit of the doubt at this point, what we know is that he had additional outside income that he did not report. That's the $750,000.
That's fraud.
That's the $750,000. But that might not stick in court. It may be an ethics violation, and if it's an ethics violation, who knows what happens to Shelley Silver? Personally, I think he should voluntarily take a leave of absence from the assembly and hand the gavel off to somebody else in the
Congress. You
Congress
guys have been on this story all day, Andrew. You go through this and you look at the counts and the details It is unbelievable. But Andrew,
it's Joe Bruno. Because he was the Republican leader of the state Senate. Very similar charges, very similar accusations of using his office to enhance his personal largesse, and the case was thrown out of court, and he won on the retrial. So I think there will be arguments that he doesn't have to step down. But can I tell you the worst part about this is the stuff that's legal, and we fight with our friend Richard and other people who I immensely respect that are in the legislature right now. The system is so convoluted, where it was designed to be a part-time job, but it has become a full-time job. And as a full-time job with a part-time pay for people with law degrees, etc., they go seek outside income. Again, somebody smarter than me, explain to me how you're going to make outside income when you have full-time commitment as a lawmaker. The only thing you can offer to potential people is access and influence, okay? By definition. You then have the situations that have taken place seemingly by the month, okay? Where the whole Moreland Commission was set up for this very reason. It's a go-around. But what's even worse is it could be proven, he could even fight and almost prove that what he did was legal, which is a bigger indictment on the system. We're going to get into much more of this after the break. And when we come back, Andrew sat down with a man who wanted to be governor and made this a big campaign issue, Rob Astorino. I'll be very curious to see what the Westchester County exec had to say about what should happen to both Mr. Silver and also about the system. That and much more here when we come back.